That's the Fox and Hounds Pub. Dates back to the 1700s. I think it used to be called the Bull and Boar, if I recall. Changed its name to Fox and Hounds in the I think it was late 1820s. Hasn't changed a whole lot. It used to be one of 4 pubs in the village. Certainly in the 1900s I counted 4. It's the only one still there now, or still here should I say. I'll just put up a picture from about 100 years ago of the same spot, and as you can see it hasn't changed a whole lot. Just coming down now, the building on the left, it's a private residence now, but it was what used to be the Wesleyan Methodist chapel on the left hand side of the building, and the sort of secondary building on the right was an add-on for a Sunday school. So I think the Wesleyan building was certainly about 1870, something like that, and the Sunday school was added, I think it was 1906 if I recall. As I say, it's now a private residence. But yeah, very obviously a Wesleyan chapel on the left there, with the Sunday school extension on the right. Old chapel, indeed it is. Building on the right is the school, the village school, and that building has been there as the village school since 1846. There was a school in the village before then, but not on this site. But a lovely building, been well looked after, and as I say, still functions as a school today. Fantastic bell on the roof there. I doubt that still works. Or is still used, should I say. Looking for a footpath somewhere down here on the left to go to the second of the chapels in Great Gidding Baptist Chapel. I think it's probably here. Looks like it. Go and have a look. Apologies for the low sun at the moment, it's plays havoc with the video. The building's on my right here, I'm just trying to get a decent view of it. This is an old one, 1700s. It's the oldest chapel in the village. There you go, Great Gidding Baptist Chapel. Just check my notes, it dates to 1790. The significance of these chapels is we're about to enter what I can only describe as a suburb of Great Gidding that's called Chapel End, and I wanted to find out where that was derived from. Obviously chapels, there's two of them, and one assumes they both gave their name to Chapel End, which is our route out of the village. Right, escaping from Great Gidding now, up through Chapel End, which is at the foot of the village. Quite a steep and narrow road, this one. Just heading up now towards Chapel End Pond, where that green sign on the fence up ahead is. Used to be a sort of village pond in the early 1900s, before the days of piped water, certainly used by the farms for giving livestock access to water, and was very important as a result. But in the late 1900s it was just neglected and overgrown. I'll put up some pictures in a minute, you can see just how overgrown it became. But the local parish council obtained a grant to restore it, to restore a pond no less, and yeah, good on them. Although it's fenced off now, and it was not fenced off originally, but the pond has returned. Not sure how much water's in it. Beware pond by order, parish council. Yeah, good job. Full of newts now. Well, not leapt necessarily right now, but yeah, part of the village newt trail. Yeah, cracking job. I'll put up another old picture. Not sure how old this one is, but again, probably getting on for 100 years, with a pond on the right. All those buildings, all those cottages sadly have gone, but at least the pond is back. Right, climbing out of Great Gidding now, we've come to Great Gidding windmill, which I have seen before. Looks a bit more like a lighthouse now. That's probably because it's been, I don't know what the word is, renovated. It's not been restored as a windmill, it's a private residence. Hard to get any views of it really, but I have got a video that was used. I'll put that up so you can have a look at what it looks like today. Yeah, nice job. Built in 1820, probably didn't last too long to be honest with you, because these mills, by the time you got to the late 1800s, they couldn't make ends meet. There was a lot of changes going on in the world at the time, corn laws and whatever being abolished, railways coming in, cheap corn coming in from the continent. They couldn't compete, and the vast majority, and there were many of them in this neck of the woods, just disappeared. At least this one is still standing, albeit as a private residence. Right, somewhere up here, in theory, on the right, we'll leave the road and hit the fields, where we will find mud and probably get lost. But at the moment I can't even find the path, so challenge number 1 is coming up. I can't see with the sun in my face, but I think there's a footpath sign coming up. Yeah, there is. This should be it. I'm going down this one, whether it is or isn't. Yeah, this will do. Can't be bothered. I think we'll climb over this one. Bit of a view. I'm heading across the fields now, trying to find my way to the sort of next village, which bugged me a lot when I was planning this walk because I couldn't work out how to pronounce it. It is spelled, now my thinking was it's probably Winwick or Winwick, although it says Winwick, and I couldn't work it out, and none of the pronunciation sites gave me an answer. So I did some research into the sort of medieval roots of the name, and apparently Win comes from, well, it's actually 2 parts to the name. Win is an abbreviation of winner, W-I-N-A, and winner was a person. And Wick was an old sort of medieval name for a homestead or a dwelling. So it's kind of named after the home of Winner. Win has been abbreviated to Win, and so it became Winwick. So Winwick sounds silly, but it probably is the right way of pronouncing it, even though I'm pretty certain the locals probably call it Winnock or Winwick because it's easier to say. So I'm not going to get into that one. I will probably call it all 3 versions at some point, especially if I don't find it. But that's where we're trying to head now, across the fields, and yeah, this is where possibly we get lost, but I'm confident at the moment. But Winwick is where we're heading. And it's warming up now. Just coming up to the crossing, first of 2 or 3 crossings of Alconbury Brook. I think I've seen Alconbury Brook before, but only briefly. Quite low water levels, but I don't think we've had a lot of rain of late, so probably about right. Alconbury Brook runs for about 13 miles. It's quite a big stream. It starts at not too far away from here. Is it Hemmingford? Hemmington? Hemmington, I think it is. Not far away from Great Gidding. Runs all the way down to Huntingdon, where it joins the Great Ouse. If you've ever been to Hinching Brook Country Park, this is the river, because it's a river by then, that runs through that park. I was there last weekend, and it's certainly a pretty broad and powerful river by the time you get there. So yeah, Alconbury Brook. Excuse the woodpecker in the background. Always good to hear. I don't know if you can see this, but there's the woodpecker right in the centre of the screen. You can see a flash of red, which I believe is a greater spotted woodpecker. Never seen this before. I've seen a greater spotted woodpecker, but not drumming away, trying to make nest holes. Brilliant. Yeah, lovely to see. Well, I told you we'd get lost somewhere. The map says cross this bridge before coming back again. Well, I can't even get to the bridge. I could clamber through the bushes here, but I think I'm going to have to go off-piste here and sort of head in the same direction, but not crossing the bridge. Oh, changed my mind, went through the hedge. Stick to the plan. Still moving alongside Alconbury Brook. There you go, still on path. Turn right. Just coming up to the last crossing of Alconbury Brook, which is on the map, so I know I'm where I should be, which is a shocker for me. We'll be leaving Alconbury Brook here, but I think we pick it up close to the finish of this walk further upstream. Will probably be even smaller than it is here. But we're on the right walk, right route, should I say. Off we go. Straight ahead, apparently. That looks possible. That's the one. Just coming up to the crossing of, for those that know these parts, Hamerton Road. But we're not coming off here. We've got a little bit further to travel across the fields to get to the road that we want to get to. Right, coming along to the end of the field walk now. We're back on roads, and we'll be staying on roads. Probably a good thing. It's getting a bit hard work going across there. At least it wasn't muddy. It was frozen hard, but very undulating, to put it kindly. This is I think it's called the Old Western Road, and it should take us into Winwick, or whatever we're going to call it. I can see the church in the distance to the right of that tree, and that'll be our next stop. Just approaching Winwick. Believe it or not, a guy in a van, courier van's just stopped me and said, do you know this place? Do I know that place? I laughed at him and said, I don't even know where I am. But he then said, you're in Winwick. And I said, is that what it's called? And he says, yeah, Winwick. So it is Winwick. I was thinking, I was crossing the fields. If you think of Warwick, it's just W-A-R and then Wick on the end, and we pronounce that Warwick. So this has to be Winwick. Job done. Worked it out, and that's what I'm sticking with. I think we're off to the church next. There you have it, Winwick Church. Looking grand in this weather. According to my notes, the oldest part of the church is the south doorway. This is, I believe, pointing south, so this must be the old part. Which part of that doorway I don't know. Presume it's the sort of pillared structure in the centre of it. Dates back to the 1100s. The rest of the church, like most churches, has been modernised repeatedly, so different bits date back to different centuries. The next oldest part is the foot of the tower, I believe. I think that's late 15th century, so late 1400s. It'll only be the bottom bit there, which does look distinctly older. As you go up, they've probably been added in later centuries. What a lovely church. Just back at the foot of the tower, you can sort of see that doorway at the bottom is old, as in very old. It's too narrow for people of today. And that window, if it's a window, again very old. The stonework seems to change about there. It's a seriously grand building. It's hard to make this out as being anything other than a bunch of trees, but there's an old medieval moat, square-shaped moat here. The water still runs in a ditch in amongst those trees. If I show you a picture from above, you can see the shape. And what's more interesting about this photograph, I think, is the markings in the fields. What look like markings in the field next to the moat. This is actually part of a site of an old medieval village, and I'm pretty certain those field markings have to be part of the old buildings that were here. I can't think that they can be anything else, and you often get this when you look down at the right time of year on certain old archaeological sites. You can see what probably, if you dig down, is the footings of the old buildings. But yeah, this is a medieval moat in front of us. I could get closer, but it's a private field, so I'm not going in. Marked as the village hall, but it looks a bit older than I suspect. Well, I think parts of it are probably new and parts are old. I mean, there's distinctly, I'll zoom in on this, bear with me. Yeah, there's distinct old windows either side of that porch. I suspect that has to be an old chapel. It even looks like an old chapel. Just walking out of Winwick now on the road to Thurning. Any place of interest on here, there used to be a windmill. I think it probably vanished a good 60, 70 years ago. I can't find any photographs of it or any details about it, but I know where it was. And there were a couple of outbuildings as well. I'm absolutely confident there's zero to see. I looked at some aerial photographs on Google and there's nothing there. But it used to be down this track on the left, which is all gated up now, so even if there was something there, we can't see it. But down about 50 yards down that track was Winwick windmill, long since gone. Oh. Just coming into the village of Thurning now. That was a long walk from Winwick. So there's a couple of interesting things in Thurning, not a lot, but we'll grab what we see. Yeah, legs are aching now. Battery's running down on the camera, so I need to keep moving. Oh, nice day now though. It's warmed up. Still got blue skies. As we come into Thurning, these buildings on the left on the side of the road, probably the most interesting buildings in the village. These are tithe barns, or old tithe barns. Tithe, derived from the word tenth, relates to the time when landowners around here had to contribute 10% of a tenth of their produce to the church, basically. And tithe or tenth, donations, contributions, taxes were left in these barns, hence the name tithe barns. So it wasn't money, it would be corn, wheat, barley, whatever. And they're still standing. The rectory is just behind them, although it's not a rectory now, it was for about 300 years. And then we have the church, but yeah, I love these tithe barns. There's some real age in these. They always tended to be in the grounds of the rectory because it was a kind of religious tax. It was born out of the concept that the land belonged to God and everything produced on the land belonged to God, and therefore it's right that you contributed 10% of what you grew to the church. Yeah, not many of these tithe barns left now. Used to be one in Peterborough at the end of Lincoln Road in Burrabury, long since demolished. Very nice. There you go, tithe barn. And behind it we can briefly look at what is now a private dwelling, but was for a few hundred years the rectory. Now, because I don't really want to walk down his driveway, I'll put up a video I found that will give you a view of what's behind that hedge or behind those barns, and you can see for yourself what it looks like. There you go, and alongside the rectory, of course, is the church. Thurning Church. Unusual looking church, especially that little, what's apparently known as a spirelet on the left hand side. I've got no sort of background on anything on this church apart from it was virtually levelled in 1880 and completely rebuilt again. So it's a right hodgepodge of mixed dates. I think there's some stuff inside that goes way back to the 13th century. But the outside really has only been created from the late 1880s. And I have no idea what that spirelet is about. It'd probably make more sense if I was inside. But yeah, it's Thurning Church. This used to be the old heart of the original village, as it were. On the right used to be the Wagon and Horses pub. Some of that must date back to the pub days. And the building coming up with a thatched roof is the old blacksmiths. I think it's still called the Smithy or something similar. Yeah, the old Smithy. I've driven through this village a few times, and this building always stops me in my tracks. It's sort of Elizabethan. It looks genuine to me. That is a very old building. Superb under a blue sky. Don't know anything about it, but it's old. Just leaving Thurning village now. Right, heading off now to the last village on the walk, which is Luddington. Just looking across the field to Luddington Church, a bit like Thurning really. There was a church on the site, I think went back to medieval days, to Domesday Book. There was another rebuild, I think, in the 1400s, and then in the 1870s, 1874, it was almost completely rebuilt again. The architect being a chap called Richard Carpenter, who was renowned as a Gothic specialist, and this is meant to be one of his works. He went on to be quite big further south in stately homes and whatever, but this is one of his prize contributions. Luddington Church, not sure. Well, I can see a bit of Gothic in it, I suppose. I'll try and get a bit closer to it, but the battery's going to die on this camera at any moment, so if I don't get there and I don't get back to Great Gidding, which we're almost back to now, then I do apologise, and I'll see you next time. Otherwise, I'll see you later, because I've somehow managed to keep it going. But that's Luddington Church. Luddington in the Brook. It used to be called Luddington. Apparently in the early 1700s, the county historian took a disliking to the place, because every time he visited it was apparently a mess, because the Alconbury Brook, which we're just coming up to, had flooded and left all its detritus lying around. So I think whether he had a sense of humour or he was just being sarcastic, he rebranded it Luddington in the Brook, and it is still Luddington in the Brook today. Strange one that, you think they'd revert back to Luddington, but no. Luddington in the Brook, and we're just crossing the brook now. This is Alconbury Brook, which we saw earlier, a little further upstream. Not a lot to it still. I don't think there's anything to see really. Again, some nice cottages. I've seen these from the car before in Luddington village. They will date back a bit.